Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday Evening Forex Breakdown. My name is Gail Mercer, and I will be your hostess tonight. Can everyone type in Y to let me know you can hear me and see my screen okay? I would appreciate it. And while you're doing that, thank you so much. I do want everyone to take just a moment to read over the Nadex risk disclaimer. It is for your protection as well as ours. Basically, the most important thing is never trade with money that you cannot afford to risk. Any type of trading does require risk, and there's always a potential to lose. Okay? Now, for those of you that do not know me, my name is Gail Mercer. I am the founder of TradersHelpDesk.com. I've also been a Forex trader for well over 15 years now. I'm also the author of the Trading Nadex Binary Option series on Amazon. I've got one that's Keeping It Simple Strategies. Another one is the New Trader's Guide to Trading Nadex Binary Options and Spread. Trading Nadex Binary Options Using Currencies, as well on using candlestick patterns. I've been a speaker previously at the Wyckoff Volume Conference, Traders World, Traders Expo, and the TradeStation user groups. I do specialize in candlestick price formations with support, resistance, and volume analysis. I do invite you to visit TradersHelpDesk.com to learn more about me and the indicators that I use. Of course, you can always contact me via email at gm@tradershelpdesk.com. Now, what I'd like to do is start with the Aussie dollar, and I look at the higher time frames because I believe they dictate where the slower time frames are going. Well, the faster time frames, I'm sorry. So in this case, we're looking at a weekly, a daily, and a 240-minute chart. On the weekly, which is where I always start, you can see that we have on the Aussie dollar pulled back to the moving average, but it did form a reversal bar. This tells me that we should come down and probably test where this big plus sign is down here. And that's what I would be expecting. Now, if this area develops a support area, we could see the Aussie dollar go higher. But again, that support area would need to form here, okay? If you go down and look at the daily, okay, you can see that we have come down to this blue dot here. I call it a congestion dot. And normally when it gets here, it will go back and test for resistance. That resistance can either come in at this blue line, which is a fast moving average, or it can come in at this small ATR right here. Now, because the stochastics is overextended, this again is confirming to me that we could see a test up for that resistance area. It needs to form in order to come back and test this low at 66.87. Then when I move down to the 240, you can also see that it is starting to move up. So to me, one of the most important areas probably on this chart will either be the 67.90 area, or it will be this line of pluses right here at 68.04. So for someone trading this, let's say that you wanted to do a 2-hour binary option, you could go down to a 60 and a 15 and potentially trade this back up to 67.90 if you want a short-term trade. But then again, let's say that you don't want a short-term trade, you want to get the bigger trade. Well, the bigger trade will more than likely be to the downside because all of your charts are lining up to the downside. So in that case, you may not want this small trade back to the ATR. Instead, you might want to say, hey, I want this to go back to the ATR first. I want to see a resistance area form confirmed by a bearish bar and then actually enter that trade. Does everybody understand that? it is two ways to trade it, depending on what type of trader you are. Okay. I would definitely be watching this area and this area to see if resistance forms in those areas. It quite likely may be up here at about 68.05 though, just because that's the area where the fast moving average is. Let's go look at the euro yen. On the euro yen, you can see that we made a low here, and it has been moving up since then. We've also formed a resistance area on the daily chart here. Okay, so now it's coming back down. Okay, the important thing here is, does it come back to test 116.68, or does the fast moving average hold it up? Okay, when you look down to the daily, you can also see that it has formed a potential support area on the 240. Okay, that's what that big plus sign tells you. And we could actually see this come back and try to test the 119.80 area. Okay, then when you look down to the 240, you see that this is the support area that was identified here. Okay, so we have a support area. I would still expect it to try to test this area again before it continues up. Typically, that's what price does. It makes little double bottoms and double tops. They're what I call micro double bottoms and micro double tops, and they're pretty easy to see with this indicator. So you made a high here, came back to test it, rejected it here. Okay, sort of the same concept that I want to see here. It's moved up, but now I want it to come back and try to test this to ensure that this is actually going to support this area. Does everybody understand that? As long as that area holds as a support area, then price could potentially move up to 118.77 or even up to 119.23. It would be between this plus sign and the slow moving average. Let's go look at the euro dollar. And on the euro dollar, we are coming back to test this support area. And that's what you're seeing on the weekly right now. It's just testing to see, hey, is there support for price to move up or not? Then over on the daily chart, you can see that you have a resistance area at 1088, and you have a potential support area at 0993. Okay, so if this area holds, then we could actually go back up and test the 1086 area. The question is going to be whether that area holds or not. Okay, so what you're looking at potentially is this area right here supporting price, but this area may resist price. Okay, if you come over to the 240 minute, you do see that we're going up here. But again, I like to see these little double bottoms that we have. Here's a micro double bottom here. Here's another one here. That's sort of what I want to see here. Okay, I would like to see it come down, test this area again. And as it tests that area, I'd like to see divergence on the stochastics. That's when I would get interested in trading this back to the ATR. Okay, once it gets back to the ATR, there is a potential for it to come back down and take out this low, as long as you are not overextended over here on the daily. If you're overextended on the stochastics on the daily, then that cannot play out because you'll need that retracement over on your daily chart. Any questions on the euro dollar? All right, let's go look at the British pound yen. Now, on the British pound yen, what's interesting to me is we had a hidden divergence between this high and this high here. You can see that we went higher, but price did not go higher. I'm expecting this at least to come back and test this moving average. You can see it's already formed that double bottom formation that I talked about. So I'm expecting it to come back and test this blue moving average here. It's also called the fast moving average. When we go down and we look at the daily, notice how you were making higher highs in price, but you made lower highs on the stochastics. So this told me that we're probably going to come down to this ATR here, okay? Now, right now, it's trying to develop support on the 240, okay? And the reason that's happening is because the 240 is overextended at the moment. I would be watching this moving average. Do you see how here that moving average held? We could see the same thing over here, and then we would get that double bottom formation right here at this line of plus signs, okay? Because that is so close to where price is right now, I would be more interested in seeing if it forms that resistance area and then potentially trading it back to the downside. Any questions on the British pound yen? Okay, let's go and let's look at the British pound dollar. See what it's doing tonight. Now the British pound dollar, very similar to what we just saw on the British pound yen. You made a high here. You just made a high here. This high is lower, and yet this stochastics went up. That's called a hidden divergence. Normally this will push it back down. I would anticipate it coming to the fast moving average. It's already formed that double bottom here, okay? When we come over and look at the daily, you can see we're making higher highs, gave you a divergence, and it has started to come down, okay? Right now you're overextended on the 240, so I would be anticipating at least a retracement up here to just about 24.50, okay, which is only about 20 pips away. And then I would want to see, does this act as a resistance area? If it acts as a resistance area, then we may go down and we may even test this area here. It's right below the 2300 area, okay, because that's where the ATR is over here, okay. But I would want to see that resistance form before I even thought about taking a trade on the British pound dollar to the short side. And if you look, this coincides with this and with this number over here, okay? So you've got a lot of support in that one area there. Let's go and look at the USCAD. And on the USCAD, you have had a resistance area form here. And whenever you form a resistance area, typically price will move down. And it did for one bar, but then it stopped, okay? The stochastics is not really giving you any indication of a direction. Neither is the RSI or the ADX. So on the weekly here, I can't really tell which direction it's going to go. Based on the resistance up here, I would think it's going to go down and it would take out 3018, okay? But then I would want to look at the daily to see if the daily confirms that. And it has come back and it has tested this area for resistance and it's been unable to push through that area. I would think it would at least come down to 3141, okay? Then when we come down to the 240 chart, you can see that we are testing these highs, but we're failing to break through them. So on this one, I would think it will come down to 32.18. Then it would test for resistance again, which will be lower than this one here. Okay, the resistance will form, and that's when you're going to get your stronger move down to here, possibly even here. This is going to be a little bit harder to trade, in my opinion. Any questions on the USDCAD? Go look at the USD Swiss franc. In the USD Swiss franc, it's not quite overextended yet, but the one thing that I would notice on this immediately is you made a high here and you've come back to test it, okay, and you have the ATR there. You also had on the monthly chart a high develop here. That's what that pink line means. Okay, if you look at the stochastics, I mean, they put a lot of effort into taking that price up, and they failed. Okay, this is where I think it will at least come back to test here, potentially even at 9,700. Okay, if you look at the daily chart, you can see that you had divergence. That's what's kicked off this latest downward move. You have an ATR down here at 98.40. And then on the 240-minute chart, you just had a potential area of support develop here. Now, what I don't like about that particular area of support is you're not overextended yet. I would actually like to see it come a little bit lower, maybe down to here, and the stochastics being overextended. That would tell me that this has the potential to push up. I'm just not seeing that push up right now. Any questions on that one? Your better trade opportunity will more than likely be when this does retrace, potentially even to the slow moving average here, somewhere between 99.20 and 99.40, and then let it form that resistance area. Okay, if it forms that resistance area in here, then I think more than likely the better move would be to the downside, even potentially down to here to retest this area here. Okay, and finally we have the USDJPY. And on the USDJPY, the one thing that I would notice immediately would be the fact that at the moment we're making a lower high with a higher high on the stochastics. You do need to wait until potentially this Friday when this bar finishes. This bar needs to finish as a bearish bar. If it does, that's where you're going to get that divergence. It cannot go higher than here. Okay, that's going to be important because that hidden divergence will push this down. Okay, when you look at the daily chart, you can see you were making higher highs, but the stochastics made a lower high. That started this downward move. It seems to be trying to develop a support area right now on the 240. That's what that plus sign is telling me. But again, I would anticipate this to come lower on the stochastics before that actually developed. That's why I would think that where it's at right now, this moving average may actually hold, okay, simply because it needs to move down a little bit further over here on the daily, okay? It doesn't mean it will, it just means that more than likely it will. You would also want that double bottom formation that I've showed you numerous times now. You would want that to develop here, okay? And basically what it does, you move down, then you move up, then you move down, and then you move up. That's what that double bottom formation does. and it's a little micro formation. It's not very big, but if you can learn to spot those, they're usually pretty good entry points. Now, once this comes back, I would say to 107.85, and it will have a retracement more than likely back to 107.85 this week. And it could even go as high as 108.48, which is where this top was. But if it does, and if, okay, this is a big if that area develops as a resistance area, we could see another downward push on the USDJPY. Any questions tonight? We do have the UN meeting on, I believe it's Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe Thursday this week. We don't have a lot of reports on the USD side, but we do have the FOMC members speaking on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Okay, those are ones you're going to have to watch out for. They're going to be looking at these speeches to see if they give any clues about what the next FOMC meeting is going to be about. I know today at one point they said they were probably going to cut another 1/4 point. Also, you have the Bank of Japan speaking to tomorrow morning early at 1:30, and then tomorrow morning at 6, well 5:55, you have the RBA governor speaking. Then we have crude oil inventories on Wednesday. We also on Thursday have the final GDP. This is a quarter-over-quarter report. Okay. They're expecting it to be the same as it was the previous month. Then at 9:30, Draghi is speaking again. The Bank of England governor is speaking at 9:45. Then on Friday at 8:30, FOMC member speaks again. We also have the core durable goods and the personal spending month over month. Now, these could move the market, but with it being month over month, I'm not sure that it's going to move the markets, not the Forex markets, a whole lot. Okay? Any questions tonight? Okay, if there are no questions, then I want to take just a moment to give you my contact information. Okay, and again, you can visit my website at www.tradershelpdesk.com, and you can always email me at gm@tradershelpdesk.com. I would like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I hope you join us in 2 weeks when we have this again. And I hope everybody has a wonderful week trading. Okay? Have a wonderful night.